Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new Pokemon TCG video. Today we're going to be examining a deck that uses the Mega Gallade EX as the main attacker of our deck. Mega Gallade EX, I have to say, is not all that impressive of a Pokemon, but when we do get our line set up properly, it can be an absolutely devastating Pokemon, potentially hitting for up to 260 damage in a single attack. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is that if our opponent has a fully loaded bench and an active Pokemon, then if all their bench Pokemon happen to have damage counters and we use the Unwavering Blade attack, we can hit for up to 110 damage to our opponent's active Pokemon and an additional 30 damage to each of our opponent's bench Pokemon. Now that may seem a bit far-fetched, but believe me, it's actually quite feasible. So how we're essentially going to do that is that we would like to bring out the fortresses with the Torn Tempest ability, and that allows us to stack a damage counter on every single one of our opponent's Pokemon when we do evolve the Pineco into the Fortress. So Fortress is a very nice Pokemon in combination with the Mega Gallade EX. I'd say it's a better Pokemon as opposed to the typical Zubat, Golbat, and Crobat line. Reason why I'm saying that is that we can essentially stack up to 60 damage counters in a single evolution. 6 damage counters on a single evolution, so a total of 60 damage. Now, the reason that that's so beneficial is that, well, first of all, Fortress allows us to simultaneously target every single one of our opponent's bench Pokemon, and in case the most troubling situation which we can potentially encounter is probably going to be a Safeguard Pokemon, and in case we do happen to encounter one of those, we have the Dusknoir with the Sinister Hand ability, allowing us to move any damage counters from one of our opponent's Pokemon to another one of our opponent's Pokemon, so we can theoretically quite easily knock out those Safeguard Pokemon. So it shouldn't give us too difficult of a too much difficulty really, but one thing about the Dusknoir is of course that it has a lot of synergy with the Mega Gallade EX, just repeatedly allowing us to hit, as I said earlier, a potential up to 260 damage. Now if we're facing a Roaring Skies, the Mega Rayquaza EX deck that happens to have a Sky Field on the field as well, then that Mega Gallade EX can hit for even more damage, so that can be pretty cool. Anyways, let's discuss some of the other cards that we are running in our deck, guys. So we're also going to be running a total of 2 copies of the Shaman EX with the setup ability. This allows us to hopefully get our deck set up a little bit earlier. As the ability says, setup, that is essentially what we're using the Shaman EX for, because we'd like to get our setup going nice and early. So we are running 2 copies of the Shaman EX as well. The very last Pokemon that I want to discuss with you guys is the Gallade EX with the Swift Lunge and Piercing Prizes attack. I have to say that it's a pretty underwhelming EX Pokemon for the most part. Piercing Prizes is very reliant on the number of energy cards we have, the number of prize cards that we have remaining. So not a good attack by any means. Could potentially hit for up to 170 damage. So that could be potentially a devastating hit, but again, too much of a reliance on the number of prize cards that we have, so probably not going to be using that attack all that much, especially as well given the fact that it is quite energetically expensive, requires a total of 3 Psychic Energy cards. That takes quite a bit of setup to really get going. Swift Lunge is a decent attack since we are going to be running the Dimension Valley. Could allow us to stall for a little bit of time in that we can choose whether or not we'd like to switch our opponent's active Pokemon with one of their bench Pokemon. Again though, the whole purpose of Gallade EX is to evolve into the Mega Gallade EX, which is the real attacker of our deck. Now, I've also decided to include a total of 2 copies of the Double Colorless Energy. The reason for this is twofold. Number one, as you guys know, we are running the Shaman EX in our deck, and if we use its attack, we can bring it back into our hand, and then hopefully we can use the setup ability all over again. Now, the other reason for the Double Colorless Energy is that it works quite well in combination with the Fortress's Iron Crash attack. So Iron Crash initially hits for a 20 damage and an additional 20 more damage for each energy card required on for each energy in our opponent's retreat cost. So that can hit for a lot of damage on some bulky Pokemon such as the Primal Groudon EX, for example. So Fortress is by no means a Pokemon that should be underestimated. Double Colorless Energy is just very, very useful. We are running 2 copies of this. We're also running a total of 10 of the Psychic Energies. Of course, that's mainly to be used for the Mega Gallade EX to be able to attack. Now, given the fact that the Mega Gallade EX's Unwavering Blade attack requires a total of 2 Psychic Energies and 1 other energy card of our choice, luckily for us we can reduce that energy cost by a little bit. By running a total of 3 copies of the Dimension Valley, this allows each of our Psychic type Pokemon's attacks to cost 1 energy card less. So that's going to work very much so in our favor with respects to the Mega Gallade EX. Initially I wanted to include some Frozen City Stadiums and the Team Magma's Hideout, I believe it was called, just to stack some damage counters on each of our opponent's Pokemon, but Dimension Valley is definitely the way to go, just allowing us to attack that much more easily. So we are running 3 copies of this in our deck. We're also running a single copy of the Dowsing Machine Ace Spec in our deck. We could potentially swap it out for the computer search. I haven't really played enough to decide which one I feel is the better one, but I feel like we do have quite a high reliance on a lot of our item and trainer type cards, such as our rare candies, Dimension Valleys, possibly even the Gallade Spirit Links. So I felt like Dowsing Machine was the way to go. Again, feel free to sort of play around with the deck and make some changes if you guys feel differently. We're also running a single copy of the Escape Rope and the Switch. Some of our Pokemon are pretty bulky, so it is nice for us to be able to freely switch in between them. So we've included a single copy of each, which could be better. One could be better than the other depending on the sort of situation we are encountering. We're also running a total of 2 copies of the Rare Candy. Rare Candy, of course, is just to allow our Duskull to evolve into the Dusknoir right away. Hopefully we can skip that Dusclops phase from time to time. So we'll be sticking with a total of 2 copies of the Rare Candy card. A single copy of the Starling Megaphone. This is just to allow us to deal with Garbodor mainly, just because its special ability could shut down our deck. Something that we really don't want. Starling Megaphone is going to help us tremendously with respects to dealing with the Garbodor, so we are running a single copy of it. I mean, it's better to be safe than sorry, even though Garbodor doesn't seem to come up all that often anymore. The other cards in our deck are pretty self-explanatory, guys, so I'm going to be going through them relatively quickly. We're running a single switch card, I've already discussed the switch cards. We are running a total of 3 copies of the Ultra Balls to allow us to grab onto any of our Pokemon. 3 VS Seekers allowing us to reuse any of our supporter type cards. We are running a total of 4 copies of the 4 copies of the Juniper, 2 copies of N, and 1 Colress as some draw supporter type cards. 2 Lysanders to lure out any of our opponent's bench Pokemon, a single Lysander's trump card, allowing us to reuse our cards all over again. Teammates just can be nice in case we do happen to get one of our Pokemon knocked out. A total of 12 energy cards, which I had discussed earlier, and 3 Gallade Spirit Links, of course, very self-explanatory. Don't want to be giving up those turns when evolving the Gallade EX into the Mega Gallade EX, so Gallade Spirit Link is going to be a very nice card to include. Now, one thing that I did briefly want to bring up to you guys' attention is that we are running a mere 2 copies of the N. Reason being is that we are running some Shaman EXs, so we're already going to have a little bit of extra draw support. I felt like it was worthwhile to include the Shaman EX in our deck, very much so, even though we do have to cut down on the number of Ns that we're running by a little bit. I mean, if you guys disagree with me, feel free to reduce the count of the VS Seeker, for example, a little bit and increase the N by an additional copy or 2. But again, I feel like Shaman EX really does make up for a whole ton of draw support, so 2 Ns should hopefully be more than enough. So with that, guys, we are gonna go and find ourselves an opponent. Again, I haven't played with this deck a whole lot. I've been tweaking it significantly though, just trying to get hopefully what I would like to consider the perfect formula. It looks like we are facing a fairy type deck. Chances are we are going to be facing the Mega Gardevoir EX, and we're running the Mega Gallade EX, so this should be quite an interesting battle. I'm going to start off by bringing out the Gallade EX as our active Pokemon and the Pineco on our bench. I'm going to use the Ultra Ball to look for the Shaman EX as well, guys, just to be able to draw onto some additional cards. So let's go and latch on a Gallade Spirit Link onto the Gallade EX. Let's go and use the Ultra Ball to discard the VS Seeker from our hand and the Starling Megaphone as well. So let's go and bring out a Shaman EX for a little bit of draw support. And looks like one of our Shaman EXs are unfortunately prized, so let's see how things are going to end up. So let's draw until we have 6 cards, and I'm gonna go and attach a Psychic Energy card to the Gallade EX, and with that we are gonna go and end the turn. So not the greatest hand that we have right now, guys. Our opponent has a whole ton of cards in his hand, so was able to draw into quite a few. That Gardevoir EX can currently only hit us for a mere 20 damage. We're seeing the N, so that could work to our advantage. We're also seeing the Fairy Garden, so our opponent's Fairy type Pokemon can now freely retreat in between each other. So let's go and bring out the Fortress. I mean, should I bring it out? We're only going to be able to stack a single damage counter, but nonetheless, I feel like I'm going to go and do it anyway. So let's go and stack that damage counter on our opponent's Gardevoir EX, attach a Psychic Energy card to the Gallade EX. I'm thinking, I mean, if I looked for the Ultra Ball, unfortunately, that would mean I would have no longer any more cards in our hand. So I'm gonna go and use the N instead. Let me see if I have anything else useful in our discard pile. Startling Megaphone. No, let's simply go and use the N for some new cards. Unfortunately, no Mega Gallade EX just yet, but we wouldn't have really been able to attack with it anyways unless we happen to draw into the Dimension Valley. So let's go and use Swift Lunge, hit our opponent's Gardevoir EX for 30 damage, and that's unfortunately going to be it. We could potentially knock out our opponent's Gardevoir EX using the Piercing Prizes attack during our next turn. We're going to see our opponent's Spritzy and a Xerneas come out. So that Xerneas is going to be used for some energy acceleration. So things are not looking all that great right now. That energy acceleration is really what makes that Mega Gardevoir EX such a potent deck. So I'm going to see what we're going to be able to draw into. I'm unfortunately going to have to use the Juniper for some new cards in our hand. Awesome, looks like I do have the Ultra Ball, so I can go right ahead and grab into the Mega Gallade EX. So let's go and get rid of the Rare Candy and the Double Colorless Energy from our hand. Grab into the Mega Gallade EX and then bring him out. I'm going to go and attach another Psychic Energy card to the Mega Gallade EX, use the Juniper for some new cards in our hand, and then unfortunately not knock out our opponent's Xerneas, but we'll be able to stack a couple of additional damage counters onto our opponent's Gardevoir EX. So that's kind of nice. Again, though, I don't think our opponent will be able to knock out our Mega Gallade EX. I mean, his Mega Gardevoir EX would have to hit for a massive 200 damage, so I feel like that's very, very unlikely that our opponent will be able to knock out our Mega Gallade EX. Hopefully we can stack onto some more damage counters on each of our opponent's bench Pokemon by bringing out a couple more of our fortresses. Also a Dusknoir would be really nice. Sinister Hand, just allowing us to shuffle all of those damage counters on each of our opponent's Pokemon, just because, again, the Max Potion can really undo a lot of the work that will really be putting out. So opponent is going to use the VS Seeker. We're probably going to see the N again. Yeah, so it looks like the N is going to get used. So hopefully that should help us out a little bit as well. We have another Mega Gallade EX in our hand and another Pineco. So I'll definitely be bringing out the other Pineco. Hopefully we can draw into another one of the Gallade Spirit Links again, because I don't want to bring out the Mega Gallade EX and lose one of our turns due to the Mega Evolution rule. We're seeing the Trainer Mail. So the opponent is going to be able to look for one of his trainer type cards. So Trainer's Mail I feel like is a pretty nice card. I feel like a lot of players are probably going to underestimate it, like Acrobike, but I can see it being very useful in a lot of types of decks. So the opponent is going to be able to grab into his Colress, so he'll definitely be able to draw onto a whole ton more cards during his next turn. Again, Mega Gallade EX is able to survive this attack, but unfortunately Mega Gardevoir EX would probably be able to survive our onslaught as well. Not really something that I'm very happy about. So let's go and temporarily bring out another energy card on the Gallade EX. The Spirit Link, evolve into the Mega Gallade EX. And let's go and attack our opponent's Pokemon again. Luckily, we will be able to knock out that Xerneas. And unfortunately, that Mega Gardevoir EX may be healed back to full HP, which is something that I am a little bit worried about. But in case our Mega Gallade EX does get knocked out, which again, the chances are pretty high of that happening, I'll be able to use the Teammates card to look for a Psychic Energy card and the Dimension Valley. And that should allow us to hopefully be able to attack with the Mega Gallade EX that we happen to have on our bench, and I'll be able to bring out the Fortress as well, stacking some additional damage counters on each of our opponent's Pokemon. Alright, awesome. So it looks like the Mega Gardevoir EX is not going to get healed back to full HP, so we'll be able to knock it out. So I'm quite pleased with respects to that. So let's go and use that Teammates card to look for a Psychic Energy card and the Dimension Valley, just for enough energy cards for the Mega Gallade EX to be able to knock out our opponent's Gardevoir EX. So let's go and lay down another Psychic Energy, bring out another Fortress, and then stack some damage counters on each of our opponent's bench Pokemon, knock out that Mega Gallade EX, and hit some damage counters again to each of our opponent's bench Pokemon to be able to draw into 2 prize cards. So things are looking in our favor. It looks like we have a Shaman EX in our hand, which we can bring down to draw some additional cards in our hand, and the Juniper as well, so that's quite nice. The opponent has 4 prize cards remaining. The game could still shift over to our opponent's favor, But again, not really sure how things are going to go. We definitely do seem to have a significant advantage over our opponent. Awesome, looks like we have a Dimension Valley, a Shaman EX, and a Juniper in our hand. That's just a beautiful hand that our opponent has end us down into. So it looks like the opponent is probably not going to attack with the Gardevoir EX just yet. Unless, okay, so we are seeing the max potion, and we're probably going to get hit for 100 damage due to that Shining Wind attack. Again, really wish we had the Dusknoir out at play just to shuffle around those damage counters, but unfortunately looks like we won't have it just yet, but that's okay. Again, I feel like the game is probably going to be go towards our favor. So let's go and lay down the Dimension Valley. I'm going to go and lay down the Shaman EX first. Hopefully we can grab into another one of our Gallade EXs, which I can attach the Psychic Energy card to, because, I mean, the Fortresses probably won't do a whole lot of damage, even though they are the Steel type and are able to hit for double the amount of damage. If our opponent does bring out a Fairy Garden, then that makes the Iron Crash attack just very, very weak. Anyways, let's go and bring out the Shaman EX and draw until we have 6 cards in our hand. So it looks like we have another Pineco. Yeah, I'm gonna go and bring it out. It's okay, I don't feel like we really need that Dusknoir any longer. Anyways, I'm gonna go and attach a Psychic Energy card to the Shaman EX or Fortress. You know what, let's go and attach one to the Fortress. I have the, the Dowsing Machine. Let's see if we have any useful cards in our discard pile. Rare Candy, Dimension Valley, Gallade's Spirit Link. Nothing particularly useful, so I feel like we might as well go and discard them using the Professor Juniper. And alright, so let's go and hit our opponent for some additional damage. Hopefully we can get rid of that Aromatisse. If a Mega Gallade EX, if a Mega Gardevoir EX does happen to come out at play, that's when we may be in a little bit of trouble. Again, just because it would be able to hit for just the right amount of damage, so 120 damage, enough to knock out our Mega Gallade EX and turning the tide of the game towards our opponent's favor all over again. But again, I hope our Mega Gallade EX is able to survive, and I think it will be able to. I mean, the most any of our opponent's Pokemon can currently hit us for is a mere 100 damage, whether it be with that Xerneas's Rainbow Spear attack or with the Gardevoir EX's Shining Wind attack. So let's see what our opponent decides to do. We have the Dusknoir in our hand. Unfortunately, I feel like it's a little bit too late. We also have another of our Gallade EXs and Mega Gallade EXs in our hand. Maybe it was a bit of a foolish mistake for me to lay down a Pineco in our bench. I'm hoping it wasn't, and it probably was. Was not aware that I had just put another one of the Fortresses into our discard pile. So that was actually a little bit on the foolish side. And do I have any Lysanders in our discard pile? Unfortunately, it doesn't look like I do. Otherwise, we would have been able to win this game, guys, if I were able to simply drag out our opponent's Gardevoir EX. So let's see what I would like to do. I mean, we will be able to knock out our opponent's Aromatisse, so that is kind of nice, and we'll be able to stack more damage counters on the opponent's Gardevoir EX as well. So, alright, should I use Lysander's Trump card? I'm really trying to think, guys, with respects to what would be the best sort of move right now. I think we can settle for a Lysander's Trump card, so let's go and use it and reshuffle all the cards back into my hand, into my deck and our opponent's deck as well. I'm gonna go and attach a Double Colorless Energy to a Shaman EX, and then let's go and knock out our opponent's Aromatisse to be able to draw into another one of our prize cards. And I feel like we should be able to win, but again, it was a little bit of a foolish mistake on my part to lay down that Pineco. But you never know, maybe it will pay off. I don't really think it will though, but you never know. So let's see what our opponent decides to do. He currently does not have the Aromatisse, so he won't be able to shuffle around his energies using the Fairy Transfer ability. We are seeing the end, so our hand is going to be reduced to a mere 2, the Fairy Garden as well. So now that means that the Mega Gallade EX is currently unable to attack, again because it is lacking a little bit of energy cards. Opponent's Gardevoir EX is going to hit us for 100 damage, and he's going to quit, but we're just able to draw into the Psychic Energy card, guys, so we would have been able to win anyways. So yeah, so that's it. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.